Next up is a series that really is a tradition at IAB Innovation Days. We call it Objects in the Mirror Are Closer Than They Appear. Over the course of this event, you'll see short burst demos which are meant to shine a light on some recently possible technologies which are helping, in this case, to reinvent display. And all of these technologies live at the intersection of science and art, and they're helping to open the floodgates to help build brands across digital channels. You're going to see some really cool stuff from really smart companies like Radium One, Flight, Share This, and iView. Up right now is Legolas Media. Co-founder and president Yoav Arnstein is an experienced industry thought leader and revenue expert. Prior to founding Legolas, Yoav served as general manager of North America and general manager international for for iBlaster, where he developed and managed its sales and service organization. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Yoav Arnstein. Great. Enjoy.
Cheers. Thanks, guys. While I get this thing working, so I'm told I sound like Arnold the Governor. So just a disclaimer, I don't have any children you don't know of. All right. Thanks. So just quickly about our company, we've been around since the end of 2009. We've built the Audience Futures Marketplace. I'll naturally explain a bit more what it is that we're doing. This marketplace has been active since July 2010, so middle of last year. We're VC backed. At the core of what we're trying to do is to take data-driven audience buying and actually bring it closer to the more, I would say, traditional way of buying directly inventory from premium publishers, and I'll explain how we do it. As such, we are really focused on working with the premium brands, the top-tier agencies, and naturally the higher quality publishers out in the market. And you can see some of their names over here. So I think, well, Randy just spoke about it, but really advertising, and especially digital advertising, is a kind of a art meets science. And at the core of the Audience Futures Marketplace is actually taking a lot of the art that I feel still exists in advertising and will always exist, the art of strategic media planning, the creativity, which we already spoke about today, how this is a main catalyst to lift brand performance, and tie it with a lot of the science that actually quickly developed over the last few years with the advent of ad exchanges and demand-side platforms and sell-side platforms, but really bring this practice closer to the buying and planning team in the agencies and let them do a lot directly with premium publishers. Because as spoken about, well, naturally brand advertising is looking first and foremost at products and tying products to consumers. The audience element has become a main topic of discussion. I would say, in my opinion, even too heavily discussed. But really, actually, whenever we look at brand advertising, we always want to look at the message, we want to look at the context, naturally want to look at the environment. Most of the brands we work with are looking for a very safe and high-quality environment to be shown. You know, when Ross Levinson from Yout spoke about TV and how TV has one single ad format, well, I'm sure we all remember one single fact. TV ads do not compete with content most of the time. Content is put aside, right? The ad takes front and center. The online world, unfortunately or fortunately, depends how you look at it, ads need to compete with content on a regular basis, and it's difficult. So where do we feel that actually audience buying today is difficult for brands and for the agencies representing them, and why it can be a bit of an uphill battle? When you look at DSPs and buying on exchanges, you really look at a few things that are pretty disturbing in our opinion. One is that your ability to forecast how much against your defined audience you will be able to reach and how much money you will be able to spend upfront is pretty limited. And that is an issue for most of the brands we speak with. The second thing is a bit of stifled messaging. You all see what was distributed here on the piece of paper and how creative is such a catalyst to attract more brand dollars online. Unfortunately, many of the trading environments that were created for audience buying do not allow for much of the creativity that is needed. Next coming is transparency, and that goes to what I mentioned about being in a quality environment and controlling brand safety, et cetera, which tends to be an issue, or at least needs to be balanced with the scale of your spend. Just overall devaluation of content and context naturally is a main issue for many publishers that actually invest in developing content. And again, as we heard from Yao, they see it as one of their ways to compete on dollars and one of their ways to continue and be a leading destination. And when you only look at audiences, naturally, to some extent, you have to put aside the importance of other important elements that are critical for brands. And lastly, and it's more of an operational issue we see when speaking to a lot of agencies, is this fragmentation of planning and buying, where this science of audience buying kind of moved to the trading desk and in a way got decoupled from the overall process of planning and buying media. And therefore, when we look to create our solution, we created this, what we call this futures marketplace. It's basically allowing marketers to have this great advantage of leveraging data and defining who are the users that will see their ads. Yes, they are defining them using cookies, and there can be a debate whether we like it or not. But actually go and buy exactly these users directly from premium publishers, may it be NBC or CBS or what have you. And this is really the core of what Legolas is trying to do. So I'm trying to keep this session, I think Randy talked about, very practical and show you actually how we make it happen. As such, I will also try and go into our platform, which is for sure will be a big mistake because these things tend not to work when you actually want to show them. But hopefully you'll find it interesting. But before that, just quickly about the process, when I get to show you what you actually do, I'll go back to the problems we're trying to solve. The problem I mentioned are so critical, in our opinion, in order to make spending brand dollars online much easier. So the Legolas process is really a four-step process. I just want to make sure the guy on the third picture is not a buyer angry at a seller for giving him an inadequate price. It's actually a part of an auction. But the process, when we look at it, starts with building an audience, starts with our clients going into the platform and really defining who will be the users that will be exposed to their ads, no matter what publishers they actually buy from. The second phase is critical for any planning and buying agency, which is how much will I be able to spend against this, right? Can I really, is it $100,000, is it $1 million, or is it $5 million? The third phase is a reverse auction. So we actually took the ad exchange model and kind of flipped it on its head. And because basically where we came from, we said, all right, we want to allow premium publishers to sell, but naturally their price expectations tend to be pretty high. How can we help the marketers and the agencies make it affordable and still competitive to what they can get on ad exchanges? And reverse auction was the way we created to try and bring the price down. And at the end, what we enable is, of course, the futures contract. Futures, deliberately a fancy word, but at the end of the day, these are basically the same IOs that the agencies sign today, which is basically fixed spend at a fixed price for a fixed period of time. The only difference with Legolas is that it will be delivered against the specific users the buyer actually wants to buy. Okay, so that's hopefully that conveyed the message. So what do buyers actually get? If you look on the right side here, we basically create this actual layer, a new layer of inventory that is giving buyers priority in accessing inventory, and as such is creating a process that is similar to direct buying. And I think when I'll show you how it works, it will make sense. So I just wanted to show you two aspects of the platform, really two problems that we're trying to solve, and I spoke about it. So Well, I said that I think in an exchange environment, the reach and spend forecasting is a bit limited. One of the things that Legolas created, one is direct integration with the publishers in order to allow the buyer to have a view into the audience availability. And based on that, we actually created algorithms and technology that do audience forecasting in order to help the buyer understand upfront how much you will be able to spend. So I'll try and show it very quickly. Simplicity is one of the key aspects that were discussed as you know, a reason for people to go and spend. So I'll just take a very simple example of you know, an advertiser that want to target males at a certain age. Okay, so what the tool is doing, and you can actually see some of it already here. This is actually the buyer going into the platform, didn't commit a single dollar. He just knows what product he's trying to promote. And I can already tell him on the publishers in the Legolas marketplace, this is the reach you can drive. This is how many people you can meet. And this is not based on any panel-driven analysis, whether it's a ComScore, a Nielsen, or a Quantcast. This is actually Legolas looking at the publishers, seeing what cookies they have, and doing this kind of a matchmaking. It's really a dating site for online advertising, making sure that we tell everybody how much can be found, okay? So that's the first step. That is giving you already an idea of, well, how many people can we actually meet out of the target audience? We're taking it a step further and say, well, but actually to make it even more actionable, well, this marketer will need to actually spend the money within a certain period of time, which I'll give it here, at a certain frequency, which this marketer knows is something that is driving brand performance. And let's assume for a second he wants to test all the different audience segments he was building on all the possible publishers. The next step for the actual platform is in real time to try and give this marketer an idea. This is the volume you can drive when the publishers you will run on will only serve ads to the people that you want to have seeing your ads, okay? So the marketer here upfront already sees how much can be spent. We feel this can be a huge catalyst for brands, not only to think it's simple, not only to think that they can dictate what users see the ad and target the right audience, but also be able to plan their budgets accordingly. So that was problem one I was showing. Problem two is transparency. So how do we create a trading environment where the brand knows exactly where he's going to run and where the publisher actually feel confident that he's talking to people that are the type of advertisers he wants to see on his properties? And this is where we brought this very active seller and participation, very direct line between a publisher and a buyer, and really giving both sides control in order to solve this. And I'll show it very quickly. I won't go through the whole process of the reverse auction and the future allocation. But basically what we allow the buyer to do is through a very simple process, actually basically publish a buy to the marketplace. At the end of the reverse auction process, a reverse auction is a fancy name. It's basically publishers competing on a budget, okay? Which means that they have a deadline to actually submit a bid. And when I'm talking about control, one of the things is that we allow the publisher not to participate. So we don't force anybody to participate, and that's an important point for the publisher. When the auction finished, the buyer actually sees all the CPM. He sees the names of the publishers. Naturally, this is a demo account. Our system actually also offers several media plans, so several ways to allocate the budget depending on the objective of this specific marketer. And the buyer can go, choose one of the plans. He can say, he can ignore completely the actual recommendations of our system. And from here, actually create his futures contract. These are basically the allocation of dollars at the CPM that the publishers were putting into the platform. And at the end of the day, he knows that he's going to run his campaign against the audience he selected using the data that he chose to leverage. And Legolas will also help him verify that this actual audience has been met for this campaign. So we're trying to make it, at the end of the day, very similar to the current process, just layer the ability for the buyer to leverage the data. I have no more tricks. So happy to answer questions after that. Thanks very much. Thank you, the IAB, for the opportunity.